Good morning. Happy Wednesday. I'm a bit tired today, but that might have been because there was the Node.js meetup last night. We had Michael Herman talking about Kubernetes. I still don't know how to properly pronounce that. Kubernetes, I think. Because it's E-N-E-T. Kubernetes. He was talking about that and sort of getting that up and running and going forward with that. And it was a decent turnout, and we it's an interesting technology that I think I need to learn in order to sort of level up my DevOps game. But at the same time, I still really like Docker Compose and the idea of Docker Swarm too. So I don't know which one of those I'm gonna. Well, Docker Compose I already know. Docker Swarm, I don't know if I'm gonna learn that or just go straight to Kubernetes. Good morning, Pollux. And while I was sort of last night, while in between little bits of the talk, I sort of went in and played around a bit with my with this random walker application. To begin with, I decided that I didn't like the idea of forcing it to 60 frames per second. Oh, is that happening again? Let me switch off of. It's Wednesday morning. That's probably the reason, Pollux. Either that or my mind has to actually think about pronouncing the name, and I end up concentrating too hard. Yeah, okay, so I see the problem. Let's come back over here. When it's in the little preview window and studio mode, I can barely see myself because I'm so small in that window. And that's the reason why I never see it. Okay, filters, chroma key. All right, let's. I think that's better. I think so. Let me know. And then one of these days, I'll give you a proper good morning. Perfect. Then back to studio mode we go. All right. With you working, I can turn you off. Perfect. Okay, so where was I? Right. I wanted to play with actually having a proper frames per minute so I can have good animations and smooth animations if I really wanted to. Good morning, Miguel. What was the problem? So the initial problem in my mind was, and this is sort of I have this idea of where to go, and I haven't really shared it with you all yet. I want the ability to have little mini bots, and then make a decision, and then sort of do a move for that. And so one potential way to do that would be to limit everything to essentially 1 frame per tick, and then go through and ask, hey bot, what do you want to do? What move do you want to do? And then move it up. But then I decided I might want to animate that move for each one. So if they move 15 feet or 15 pixels, then I want to animate that movement during their turn nice and smoothly. And I realized that what I may have to do is choose a target. I have no idea if GGEZ tracks the number of frames that we've gone through already. If they haven't, that's not going to be that hard for us to track ourselves. And then we hit that, we would go through maybe 15 frames or 30 frames or 300 frames. I'm not exactly sure. And then animate, okay, this is the turn for that unit. This is the turn for that unit. The 5 frames per second was just a way for it to jump to the next location without it looking too terribly fast. But of course that hurt the bullet. when we were trying to fire that. So I reminded myself how we did it, how I did it way back in the Lua and Love 2D days, where we got the delta time, but that was handed to us. So with this one, I looked at how it was being handled in some of the other examples. And where is this? In update here, I'm taking, so in this while loop, I'm taking 1.0 and I'm dividing by the target frames per second. And so that gives us a fraction, 1/60 essentially. And I'm using that, so I'm actually passing that into step here and the bullet update. And so what that means is in step, we take in dt and we multiply by it to sort of basically mean that I want it to move 1/60th of the direction I want it to go in per frame, which will give it a much smoother appearance as moving forward. Now for these random walks, it pretty much doesn't help because now they just sort of stay exactly in the same place forever. So that's the next part I want to change. And down in bullet, when I update, I take in dt and I just, right now it's still moving just to the right. We're having it multiply by the dt. So if we load this up, also my keyboard is not plugged in because last night I apparently lost my USB-C converter. So that's not fun. Okay, so now I have a keyboard again. And that was my desk doing something weird. Hopefully not everything just falls apart. All right, let's go ahead and run this. Cargo run. So I don't know if you saw that. That was a really fast moving bullet. In fact, I might want to set the color in here. So in bullet, I want color is a color. So in new, that color equals, I do, color new, and is it 0, 0, 0? 0.0, 0.0, 0.0, 0.0. I can't remember if it's 0. I always get this wrong every single time. It feels like I want, I want it up here. Color, and you are just the color. That would be black. Yeah, I was afraid of that. Okay, so 255s. Oh, no, 1.0s. 1.0s. 1.0, 1.0, and 1.0 to be fully alpha. Okay, so if we do this and hand it that, now it should be white. It should be a little bit easier to see. Let's try this. So cargo run. Oh, it didn't appear at all. I didn't see it at all. An hour later today, unnamed. It's 7 a.m. for me. Are you someplace that doesn't change their clocks twice a year for no real reason? Because I am in a state that does that. And so we are now in daylight savings time or whatever the time is. That's why I always just say mountain time, because I never remember. Yeah, that's what happened. I'm actually interested. I haven't looked at the voting results yet, but I heard that California is voting of whether or not they're going to try to stop doing daylight savings and just have one standard time forever. And I am all for that. So if they can start that if they can make that a thing and then spread that to the rest of the states, I will be very happy. Okay, so what went wrong here? So we have color is this. Oh, you know what? We have to actually apply the color. So in draw, that was just getting the color here. In draw, before the circle, then I want to say, what is it called? It's graphics set color. That is set color. I want the context and self.color. I realize that I need to question mark this. And this. I guess we're not using context anymore. So underscore that. All right, let's try this and see if it's white this time. I know it does mess up my sleep cycle. It makes me feel like I just got jet lag without actually traveling anywhere. All right, did you see that? It fired, it just does the top, it fired to the right. It's super smooth because it's just basically moving its own amount, like its own size to the right, but at every frame it moves 1/60th of it. So every 1 second it moves the full amount, like its full size. So it takes several more seconds, except I changed that. That was initially. One more time, let me, I want to slow it down too, because I realized that I don't have a 1/60th. So if I put this back to self.size, so basically it's gonna, every second, it's gonna be moving a full amount over, because every frame, it's gonna move 1/60th of that frame. Oh, new bullet. Self.size, this just needs to be size. All right, so this will make it move really, really slow. And what I really like about this is it allows us to create super smooth animations as long as we don't want it to move too fast. If we lose the smoothness if we go too fast, once again, unless we have a computer that can handle extremely high frames per second. But 60 frames per second is already pretty decent. All right, Camel in a Hat, good morning, and sorry that you have to do a Mac update. So, that bullet must have been in a matrix. Yeah, well, the cool thing is what this means is that I could do things like that, where it's moving fast, then suddenly we just change the speed of it, and then we can change it back up again. And the math kind of would end up working out for us. The main problem that we run into is the fact that we just need to figure out a good speed for that. I just chose arbitrarily 500, but it's probably like a feel thing that we need to do. So I want to go back to velocity. Let's make this back to 500.0. So that'll be nice and fast. And then I'm thinking, so this is fired true right now. I'm thinking that this is obviously going to be false to begin with. We don't want to fire right away. We don't want to have, I'm going to initially pass in a location, which is a 0.2. And I'm going to have the location equal, we don't need that at all. That's going to be added in here. So I'm going to just create the bullet right when we need to fire it. It has a velocity, so we're still going to fire only to the right. Is fired, that'll be fine. The color is always going to be white. And the bullet, okay. Now the idea is, then I want to take this little circle guy. I want to make the random walker, when we create them, start, so this is width and height. Let's start right in the center. So let X, so instead of random, let's just do width divided by 2.0. And Y can be height divided by 2.0. We don't want to create a new bullet at this time. Or, I mean, maybe we do, but let's see. The color is new, so I think this is fine. We're setting the color. We don't have a bullet right here. Oh, missing bullet. So we would want to track that in here, maybe. This is where like the vector of it might come in handy, where we could have a vector of the bullets. And maybe that's actually a good idea, is when we fire it, that's when we get a location. So we're not necessarily going to get a location here. So bullet. We can, okay, so let location equals, where do I want to put this? We'll do 0.2 new. Let's do something like negative 5.0, negative 5.0, negative 5.0. Actually, it's just two of them, because two-dimensional point. Okay, so that will put it off to the left and above the screen, so it won't be visible for us. So we'll just sit there not doing anything at all. And then when we fire it, I think that's where we're going to change the location, which means that this location needs to be mutable. Or rather, we need to be able to change it. I'll let the it'll probably yell at us if I basically change the location on us. Although we don't need to change the location itself, we just need to change the X and the Y for that, not like sort of completely reset it. So what I do, is someone running a blender? Actually, no, that's not a blender. That's the water pipes is like right above me and then a wall going down. So unfortunately that means like somebody's running a sink. Usually this is early enough that nobody's really woken up in a house, and we don't really get that until later on. But my wife woke up earlier today, so. All right, we have draw, we have update. Let's do a fire. So function fire. This is going to take a mutable self. Do we need a context? Probably not, right? Because all I'm going to do is set fire to true and reset the location for right now, and then that will just auto fire it. Okay, so we're gonna do fire. We need a location. So We have a location, which is a point 2. And I don't think we need anything else. Is your game engine private stuff? What do you mean, Pollux? Do you mean like is? Well, I'm not actually. I didn't write this game engine. This is GGEZ, which is I don't. GGEZ is written by these guys. Oh, you meant is it online? Sort of. I haven't pushed up the last couple days worth of stuff, but if we go to Brooks Patton, I call this Random Walk GGEZ, which is quickly becoming not what this is because I'm sort of taking away the random walk part of it, but this is where it is right now. So I should actually take this and paste it in here. Okay, so we're gonna take a function, mutable reference to self. We takes in a location, and I don't think we're gonna need to return anything because all we're going to do is mutate state. So first things first, let's update the location. So self.location equals location. I want to see if maybe we can just reset this for ourselves. I mean, it doesn't seem to hate that, so I'm just sort of resetting that. So this is going to be like the middle of the circle maybe. And then I want to also say self.isFired. What did my mouse do? Come back here. Self.isFired and set this equal to true. And that's it. That's all fired is. It starts it off right in the middle of the circle and then sets to be fired, and later on we can do some more directional stuff with hey, fire the bolt in a certain direction. You just saw my LinkedIn? Nice. I did. I worked at I was a contractor at NASA for 8 years. So a lot of fun, interesting stuff there. That was back when I was living in California. Let's see. So we do a fire. Everything else, like the update and all that, should just work off. So if we just say right away in the bullet, what is this? We just want it to fire as soon as possible, right? So not bullet. So with it being not setting up anymore, in a random walker, we can have a bullet again. So I'm sort of going back and forth with this. So bullet is type bullet. When we create a new one, we do want to generate a new bullet. So let bullet equals bullet new. I don't think we need to get anything. And then we're going to hand in the bullet. So that makes that happy. Anything interesting you could share, or was it all NDA? I think, let's see. One of the interesting stories from that was that I met somebody who, a team of people who actually had a patent for the first insertable inside the body heart pump valve for heart surgeries, because previously all of the heart pumps that you need to get to sort of help the heart if you're having major health issues would have to be on the outside of the body, and then you put pipes and everything else inside, and it would be a horrible experience for everybody. And this one was a little turbine thing that they could insert into the heart itself. in a crazy surgery. And apparently the scientists figured it out when they were trying to solve a problem with jet engines and injecting fuel into it for the shuttle. And NASA has this really amazing thing where they will not fund any scientists unless the scientists can also release that research and put it out to the rest of the world and make it available. I mean, they can still get patents and there can still be like a profitability type thing, but it's like NASA doesn't usually make the money for that. It's usually the individual contributors that end up making that kind of money. So I thought that was super fun and interesting. It's also one of those things where like NASA has provided a lot of technology that nobody knows about because a lot of people aren't just talking about it. All right, so we have our bullet. And what I want to do then is, while we're in update, so in random walker, we have step, we have draw, we have keep. Okay, so one thing I noticed here is in update, we have walker to step, walker, keep, and Rena. I want to add maybe like a walker update, which may be where this walker step comes in to play. So right now, I don't want the walker to step at all. I'm going to want an update. In fact, I can probably remove step because I would want like a completely different move system for it. So instead, let's just do an update. So function update. This is going to take a mutable reference to self. We're probably going to need context, which is a context. The good old free profit, but 90% goes to the CEO. Well, I mean, in this case, free profit, but goes to like other companies, as opposed to the government, which like is nice. Oh, well, I think like cancel research is an interesting thing altogether. Like I think you're talking about the nonprofits, right? Yeah, this was not that. Like this had nothing to do with nonprofits. This is more about other, basically scientist who's funded by public money, so taxes, invents a thing, patents it for themselves, but essentially makes the technology available for other people to use. That way it's not just, it's not only one industry or company that controls it. Okay, so we have the context. We may need that delta time too, so we can have it be moving really smoothly, but we may not necessarily have to care about that either. So delta time is going to be an F32. I don't need to return anything right now. All right, so what I'm going to want to do is if the bullet has not fired, I want to fire it. So if self.bullet.is fired, so I kind of want this to be a not. Then I want to get a location. So we already have the location, right? It's right here. So I'm going to say, and I'm going to probably want to clone this location because we're going to be giving ownership of it to the bullet, and I don't want like, so I need to clone it so the bullet has its own location. So I'm going to do, I wonder if WonderPoint has implemented clone. Let's find out. We're going to say self dot, oh, not self. Let bullet location equals self.location.clone. Well, let me do this. It's not upset, so it implements clone. And then we can say self.bullet.fire, and we're going to hand it the bullet location. And that's it. Now, we're not going to move anymore, so method is never used to update. So you're going to come back up here to update, and I want to say walker.update. That's kind of like sad that it didn't autofill and like tell me what it needs. We need context and DT, which we're not using right now with update, so I might as well just remove this, because otherwise it's just going to yell at me about unused variables. So walker.update. All right, is there any other errors? I don't see it. So now I believe that we're going to have the, might as well start you right away. We're going to have the circle in the middle. It's going to, as soon as it loads, fire a bullet from the middle of the circle to the right. Yeah, just like that, except that was really fast, wasn't it? It was fast enough that what I want to do is make it fire forever. So what we can end up doing is have, it only has a single bullet that gets reused over and over again. So I'm thinking that as soon as the bullet reaches off the screen, so in bullet update, we want to now check to see if the bullet is off the screen. So if self dot, which means like I can't exactly just do this right away. We're going to need the width and the height, aren't we? How content are you using Rust? Like, how am I happy with Rust? I am happy. I actually do like Rust. I think it's a really fun language to work with. It's different enough than the other like day-to-day languages. And also I feel that it makes me a better programmer by using it. So I think like all of those things together makes me very happy with Rust. Okay, so I need the ability to get the width and the height and pass that and like know where the edges are. And I know right now we're doing these check edges, keep in the arena, and passing in width and height. So you don't know what to learn next as a programming language? Well, there's Rust. Rust is a great programming language, but also I would say choose a project and then choose a language that can handle, that you think can handle that project really well. And that might be a good language to learn too. Okay, so we're gonna need to send in, what about job-wise? Well, it depends. If you don't feel that you have the technology and the know-how right now to get a job, then choose a technology that is fun, that you'd be happy learning, but then can also is used by other companies. And if you don't know what that is, my recommendation is something called an informational interview. And that's where you find like another dev, a hiring manager, somebody at a company that you'd love to work at, and ask them, hey, what technology do you use? What would you do if you were in my position and wanted to work at a company like yours? Questions like that. Then buy them coffee and do that like for 3 or 4 companies, and you should be able to get a nice list of what possible targets to go for. All right, so we have this self width and height. Spoiler alert, is going to be Java or C#. Depending upon where you are, that's actually not that far off. Like, for example, in Denver here, the answer is going to be JavaScript for Node, Java, or C#. I believe on the West Coast, it's going to be Ruby, Python, JavaScript, and Node. And I think that might be it now. And like on the East Coast, I think it's just like Java. But like every single regional city, like there's unique jobs. Like I don't know why. Like the technology changes. It's like almost themed by city. Well, yeah, I kind of consider TypeScript just JavaScript. At this point, it's not that far different. And if you don't know TypeScript, you can learn it really, really, really fast. Okay, let's see. Update, Walker and S. Okay, so in update, I need to pass it the arena size. And this kind of like, so one other thing that I've been sort of keeping in mind is this is all just an experiment for me to learn different techniques and sort of like challenges. And then I'm going to redo the entire thing and rebuild it, but this time using the knowledge that I gained from this, sort of make it better. You bathe in TypeScript now. Oh, you have 4 Microsoft branches in your area. Yeah, that would make TypeScript and C# the way to go. Okay, so in not Walker update, we're gonna have bullet update, and we're gonna bring it in width and height, which I believe is an F32. So down to a bullet update. We have the context, but now we have the DT, and now we need the width, which is an F32, and height. So one of the things that I'm starting to realize that that like the next iteration through this I'm going to go with is this is a lot of arguments or parameters for this function. I'm thinking that like I can make this a structure for like the game width and height. I can basically it could be helpful in passing some of these down. So we get width and height. Now in, let's see, fire, if self.fired. Okay, so in here, we now want to say if self.location.x. So if the x is, let's check to the right first. So if this is greater than width, so if that's greater than width, or if self.location.x is less than 0, or if self.location.y is greater than height, or if self.location.y is less than 0. Now, the problem is this is going to be a sort of like, oh, you know what? I want to put this in is fired. That's what. Or rather, you know what I should really do? This will be even better. I want to, within is fired, run another function here. I wonder if I can do that easily. So function, and I'm going to take in the mutable self and it's just going to check the edges and sort of like is if we're not fired, if we shouldn't be fired, if we're off the screen. So is off screen. We're going to take in, we need to take in self. So we need to take in a reference to self. We don't need to mutate it. This is going to just return true or false. We need to take in a width, which is an F32, and a height, which is an F32. And we're going to return a Boolean. And so this will be a really simple, it just returns, it's going to be self.location. I guess I could start with like top and go around like that. So if y is less than 0, or self.location.x is greater than width, or self.location.y is greater than height, or self.location.x is less than 0. Okay, and then just return this. So if it's any one of those things, it's off the screen somewhere. Oh, and these need to be 0.0 because it's... Okay, so this is going to check if it's off the screen. Then inside of here, if we're fired, we want to move the bullet, and then we also want to check and say if self.is off screen, we pass it in the width and the height. We're going to get the Boolean back, at which point we kind of want to stop it moving right away, which this will do that because we'll just say self.isFired equals false. And so that means as soon as it goes off screen, it'll stop being fired, meaning that it's now available to be fired again. It'll get its location reset to the center of the dot and fire again. So we should get that over and over and over and over and over again. I do see we have one error up here, I think. Yeah, up here, update. Bullet update takes 4 parameters, but 2 were supplied. We're missing width and height. So in here, we have width. I think it's self.width, self.height. All right, that should be it. Let's give this a shot. All right, so I can barely see the horrible color that my the randomness chose. It's like a dark blue over a really dark blue background, but it is firing the bullet over and over and over again, and we can see that, and it's coming out of the center of the screen. So this is perfect. This is exactly what we wanted to happen. And we can actually use this for the game, which, like, my general idea was that I was gonna make some kind of what is it? A game like a royal what is it? One of those battleground royale games, where except the idea is that it's just bots playing against each other, like little algorithms that are playing instead of people. And I'm thinking initially all they get is a single bullet, and that's it. They don't get anything else. They get a single bullet, and as soon as it either hits somebody or goes off the screen, that's when they're able to fire again. So that makes it where filing randomly might work, but if I make the arena huge, then if they fire, they could be out for a while, out of bullets, and they just have to run away. And then I want to make it so that people can provide their own algorithms, or I can just put in like a bunch of random ones so we can see what algorithm is best. That's what we got right here. So the next thing would be I want to create another circle over here, and I want to try firing specifically at it, or if I want to do like a random system, then I can do, okay, here is just fire randomly. Maybe that's what I could do. I could have it fire randomly. So I'll leave that up. Now, how to fire randomly? From what I understand, the easiest way to fire randomly is I'm going to choose a random spot in here. And then I'm going to take the vector of 1, or the point of 1, the point of this one, subtract them from each other. So subtract them from each other, normalize them so they're all between 0 and 1, and then increase, so scale that up to 500, which would be the speed of the bullet, and then that is the velocity. And so that, adding that will cause it to like go off in this direction, for example. So I believe that's what I want to do. And I'm not sure if there's any methods or functions that'll sort of help me out with that, specifically with like vector math, and we may have to like implement some of those on our own. So let's begin by creating a, first of all, this color is horrible, so I want to make it not be quite so random anymore. Let's make, okay, so the color, well, maybe this works. I want it to be on the higher spectrum. I don't know. Maybe I'll just leave this as it is. And what I want to do is create a target for it. So our walker will need a target to think about. So in update, if the bullet is not fired, fire the bullet. And we're going to bullet location, but we also need a destination of where to fire to. So we're going to need access. So in random walker, we have width and height is where we're going into. All we end up having here is self width, self height. Game state is here. I kind of wonder, I'm wondering like how I'm starting to see like I may need everything to be aware of where like the boundaries, like the full width and height of the game. I'm wondering, is passing that around everywhere a good idea? Or do I want to make this like a true global? And I'm not sure what the best idea for this is. Not everything needs to know it, but a lot of things need to know it. Like for example, if I want to choose a random target around, that's going to be somewhere in here. And do we have access to game state? Well, it has the width and the height here. This end up might have to be its own structure. So that way I could pass it as a single thing. Game state has this in the game state. We then pass in, so in update, we might now need to pass in the self.width. Okay, so let's go backwards to this. So we're gonna have to pass into update here. So walker to update. We're going to, in random walker update, we're gonna take in, let's call this game width, which is an F32, and a game height, which is an F32. So here, we're gonna have, we're gonna fire the bullet, and we need to tell it a destination of where to fire to. So that's going to be, let sort of like destination, target, let target equals self dot I guess it's not going to be a location. It's going to be a new point, and I want to do it as a random location within that. Actually, maybe we shouldn't do random location for right now. And the reason for that is because I don't, I want to make sure it's working properly. So I'm going to do up here, 0, 0. You were thinking about commenting about that. Your initial thought was the context should be something global because you're thinking about allocating some memory with every update for every bullet. I am updating the memory for every bullet, but the bullet is not being deallocated ever. It's just being reused. So there is only ever one bullet that exists. Yeah, it is. This is something that, like, when it comes to game performance and like making sure it's really like good, I actually don't know enough about how to make it proper. So this might be something where I could ask, I know Danny Fritz does a lot more game development, so if maybe I could ask him if I can ever track him, if I can track him down and get him to code review with me, maybe he'll help me with some ideas. Okay, so target, point to new, let's do this 0.0 and 0.0. So I want this to be in a top left corner, and we're gonna fire up in that direction. So we give that, we give bullet fire, bullet location, and let's also fire towards the target. Now this is going to make that unhappy, and you're unhappy now because update, I'm supposed to be passing in, what is it? The self.width, self.height. Yeah, making games can be complex, especially when we start getting into, oh, this is, okay. This sort of like drives me crazy, so I want to move around. I want to use this one. Okay, so we have in fire, we now want to take in a, so bullet location, bullet target, which means we need to go down to bullet, and we take in the target. I don't even know if we need this. We're just going to update the velocity. So in fire, was this fired or was this update? Bullet.fire, we need the target. So the bullet location and that. All right. So down here, fire, we need the target, which is also a point 2. And the idea is that we want to subtract them, but unfortunately there's no minus. We'll that will also be something we'll have to update in the real one. So I'm gonna say, so let I guess, like, is it the velocity? well, okay, so we're going to need to also set up the, what is it? We're going to need to normalize it too. I'm not exactly sure the math for that right now. I may have to look that up later. So I want to set unnormalized, like the difference. So maybe I'll call this direction. So the direction is going to be the target dot x. Oh man, okay, so direction is going to be a new point. So 0.2. This is the reason why implementing this math will be so much easier on it, because then I could just do direction equals location minus target. Like that's kind of what I want to do, but I can't do that right now because I need to implement that, and I think that's not that hard. So we're going to do location.x minus target.x. And then the y of it, the second point, which is going to be location.y minus target.y. Okay, so that gives us sort of like the directional vector. But now we need to normalize it because it's a potentially big number. In this case, 0, 0 minus this, it's a negative for this one. Also, I probably need to make sure that it's a fully positive number. I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. I do want it to move in the negative. I do need to normalize that. But if I take direction and I set this equal to the velocity, so if I then say self.velocity is equal to direction, I'm curious about what will happen now. I'm hoping that it'll move up and to the left, but it'll probably be a weird speed. So I got the direction kind of sort of right. But exactly the opposite of what I wanted to do. So I think I need to do the opposite here, which is it's not location.x minus target. It's going to be target.x minus location.x and target.y minus location.y. And then that should work. And you just remembered you're reading the GGEZ library after the stream. Apparently GGEZ has a vector2 struct. Maybe that has the standard linear algebra operations implemented. Oh man, that would be really good. Okay, so the speed is consistent because it's really 0, 0 minus 500, which is exactly the speed that we set previously. But if for some reason, if I chose like a location randomly throughout, it's going to be slow, depending upon where to go. But now that I know that this works in general, let's just do like a completely random location in the last couple minutes that I have. So in this one, my target, so I want to go here to target. Oh, it's like a shift F12 will show me fire, not that one. Oh, that's not what I want. No, this one, that's what I want, F12. Here we go. In this function target clone, this is what I want. Okay, so go here. So I really do like the VS codes, the ability to sort of like jump around and get to like, hey, what's using this code? And just jump right to it. All right, so we're not using game width and game height, but we're about, should we change that? Let's change that now. Let's do a random number between game width and game height. So random number somewhere in here. So in bullet location in target is point new, and we're going to set the width, the height, the x. So the x is going to be a random. So a random F32, and we're going to multiply by game width. And we're going to do the same here. So for the y, it's going to be random F32 times game height. All right, that should give us a point that is like a complete random, and now we should fire randomly throughout. What are you upset about? Binary operation cannot be applied to function. Why not? You should be able to put these in here. Binary operation less than sign cannot be applied to function. Expected F32 found a Boolean. Is random returning a Boolean? Double, yep, double again. Rust and the double, there. There we go, that'll work. I forget about that constantly. All right, let's come back here and let's now see if we're, it should fire in random directions, but the speed should be variable now. The speed of the bullet, which is not really what we want. And you can sort of see some of them are slow like that because it shows a spot over here. And some are fast, like at the edge. And so what I want to do next time is I want to come in here and I want to do something called normalization, which takes that difference when we subtract the target and the location, and then crunches it down into a number between 0 and 1, and then we can scale it back up to 500, which is the speed that we want. And there'll be tiny like changes in the speed, but it will be pretty much it'll be pretty much exactly what we want it to be. They won't really affect the game at all. So, but with that, we're sort of like getting close to being able to put 2 on and have them shoot at each other. But with that being said, I think it's time for me to mark this as an end. I'm going to go ahead and git commit all of these up. What do we got? So we have our comp toml. This is fine. Can save you. And main, yep, you're fine with all the changes we had. So not randomly walking, but now shooting randomly. So I'll send this on up. I can't send it up right now because I haven't set up my keys on this system yet. So I need to do that, and I'll do that right at the end, like right after the stream. I'll probably not right after the stream. I need to go to work. I'll probably do it later today sometime, like maybe when I get home. So with that being all said and done, I'm done here. So stream ending. I've got to go get ready for work, and I'll be back tomorrow morning. I'm doing this at 7 a.m. or at randomly in the morning. I may be having to change my schedule because the daylight savings thing is making my commute from work kind of a pain because of the darkness. So I may have to like play around with something, or I may start taking the bus, and one of the buses leaves in 3 minutes, which I don't have time to get to right now, and I may want to start off early so that I can make that. Anyways, we'll play around with that. Watch from my Twitter for any announcements about schedule changes or anything else, and that's it. So I'll see you all tomorrow morning, most likely at 7, but keep an eye on Twitter just in case I go earlier. With that, have a great rest of your day.